Early March was when the whole coronavirus thing got really serious. I mean, I'd sort of been enjoying it until then because it was like a disaster movie, but then it suddenly became a 3D disaster movie, which was actually happening. All across Europe, they started shutting everything down to deal with it. But in Britain, almost everything was still open.
Some people said we should do what other people in Europe were doing, but we couldn't see what they were doing because they were all indoors. And since our passports went blue, we don't have to do what they say anyway, no matter how sensible it looks.
People in overseas world were wearing masks and keeping their distance. But over here, Boris Johnson was shaking hands with everyone in sight. Maybe after spitting in his palm first as an act of dominance, or just to keep it clean, which would be thoughtful of him.
Anyway, some people thought it was all getting confusing, so to clear things up, Boris Johnson held one of those emergency press briefings they've got into.
I've got to be clear, we've all got to be clear, this is the worst public health crisis for a generation.
I thought, here goes, you know, they're going to shut everything down immediately because it's serious. But instead, they said we didn't have to shut things down until it got more serious.
This is the shape of an epidemic.
They showed all these graphs that proved if you didn't shut everything down at the right moment, the middle of the virus would bulge up into a sort of big dick of doom. Whereas if we timed it right, we could flatten the curve that we were falling behind. Even massive events weren't shut down. Like the Cheltenham Horse Olympics was still on, and you could see from the coverage that there were loads of people there. Luckily, a human can't catch coronavirus from a horse, unless it's a pantomime horse, which are disqualified from Cheltenham anyway.
They got criticised for that, but the official line was that stopping mass gatherings now wouldn't make as much difference as it would later, when there'd be more people spreading the virus they'd caught at the first load of mass gatherings. But then the Premier League said, bollocks to this, we're turning the football off. And that was an even bigger shot across the bows than Tom Hanks had been, so the government had to come out again for another briefing to clear things up.
Now is the time for everyone to stop non-essential contact with others and to stop all unnecessary travel.
But they still didn't shut things down. Instead, they advised people to avoid things like pubs, rather than ordering the pubs to actually shut. It sounds mental at first, but what it meant was pubs could remain open, endangering customers and staff, but that while that was happening, they were also watching their business dwindle away to nothing. Actually, it is still mental, isn't it? Some people said the government was secretly going for a policy of herd immunity, which is what happens when the majority of the population has already had something and won't ever get it again, so it totally dies out. Like what happened with fidget spinners.
Anyway, by now, everyone was clamouring for a total lockdown. So Boris came out like a sort of downbeat Santa and gave the public what he wanted.
There now follows a ministerial broadcast from the Prime Minister.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
Christ, OK, but is there going to be something more cheerful to watch?
I urge you, at this moment of national emergency, to stay at home, protect our NHS, and save lives.
Don't know about you, but I preferred his earlier, funnier material.